I would like to also move ahead with this, that as our anchor asked about the tech launches that we follow a lot, how many of you have recently discovered the tech launch of any product via a social media buzz and not a TVC campaign? A social media buzz where you see influencers, where you see community engagement. Can I see a raise of hands? 1, 2. Just these many? Are you serious? We are all on Instagram, guys. Come on, remember. Okay, we see a few show of hands in the room. And that's what exactly the shift is, right? Today, tech brands take so much of marketing spend into creating communities or creating a social buzz just before their tech launch. What do you think? Tech brands are often from one launch to another. And how do you decide which launch actually deserves a full-scale attention and media strategy, and the others can be a low-key, strategy to depend on?
Right. So thank you again, for inviting me here and to, also giving me this opportunity to, represent the entire tech marketing fraternity. So the first thing, that I would like to address is that thing that you mentioned about, drop after drop. So while that is what the reputation is of tech marketers, that we are launch marketers, I would kind of like to take this opportunity to sort of dispel that myth. Because the thing is, the way we basically look at tech marketing now has kind of shifted a bit. It used to be like that. It used to be like a very famous man coming up on the stage, taking a phone out or some other device out and saying that, introducing this. And, that is what largely used to kind of, like, say, drive majority of our, like, you can say, the SQVs or our, awareness. But of late, what we have started realizing is that the battle we are fighting is not really an awareness battle. It is actually a consideration battle. It is what we call is the battle of the middle, the messy middle. So what is happening is, if I ask around the room right now, every person here and every person outside also would be able to quickly name 5 tech brands, like across smartphones, across tablets, across wearables, anything basically. But if you ask them that, what exactly are you thinking of buying? That is where basically the, the thing gets really difficult. So the way we kind of look at it right now is that always, at all point, everyone is evaluating. Like, that is how we basically look at the market right now. And everyone is kind of thinking that I know of this phone that has come out, of that laptop that has come out, of this particular, like whatever, like, say a tab that has come out. And, whether I'll go for it, at what time will I go for it, what exactly will I, will be the offer that kind of nudges me to basically go for it, is where basically the battle, sort of like, say, lies for us. So which is why the approach that I would suggest is not really like a launch-to-launch approach, which is what, like, is traditionally known for tech, but rather kind of a very always-on, through the year, sort of a very consumer-focused, consumer-need-centric approach to understand who exactly are the people who basically buy tech, what their specific needs are, and then kind of going after that,
Awesome. We know that product cycles are shrinking a lot when it comes to the tech market, right? So as to say, हम सबने देखा है कि आजकल एक नया कैमरा ऐड हो जाता है तो एक नया मॉडल बन जाता है, 2 इंच ऐड हो जाते हैं फ़ोन में तो एक नया मॉडल बन जाता है, right? Back to back, we see product launches happening. How does media planning adapt to this to avoid fatigue, especially in an attention deficit market?
Right. So, to answer that, I would suggest that, not all launches or not all product drops, as you were saying earlier, actually, need that level of, like, say, reach building. Like, obviously, there are some in which you need to kind of, attract enough people into the whole base, and you want them to basically, first of all, know. So that's why your announcement is very big. So which is why the reach building is needed. Like, from all the way from the pre-buzz to, like, say, the sustenance. But, there are some cases, like, like I can actually name a few in which, what we have gone for is deeper relevance. So just one random example off the top of my head is something that many marketers would probably know about, is something that we did for Panchayat. And, we did along with Panchayat basically. So for one of our phone brands, I'd rather not take the name. But, so what happened was that we realized that they basically need to speak to an audience for whom the tech gurujis of the world, won't really appeal much because of the simple fact that they do not really know what an AnTuTu score or what a Geekbench score is. They would rather basically want to hear from people who are like them. So hence relatability was the key, and hence basically the Panchayat campaign that we did, it entirely basically focused on using Fulera and the people of Fulera, fictional village, that everyone loves, the entire country knows, for them to basically introduce the phone and to say that, all the things that it does, in their everyday lives and all that. And the results were astounding, so just by relevance building, we managed to get reach, So that is, I think, the way to kind of look at tech marketing in general, that not something in which you basically keep doing big drops one after the other to create fatigue. Rather, you kind of go little sharp in some cases you go little wide. Yeah.
Makes sense. Earlier today, we had Ruchira ma'am's session where she mentioned that 6.3 posts are scrolled every second by the generation today. And this is just with one platform. It may be much more with various platforms all around the day if we take the average. Basically, attention is more fragmented today than ever. Which channel is the best when it comes to tech launches, and how do you decide that this product launch is fit for this platform?
Well, I'll answer this in two parts, basically. So just to basically answer that, the channels that are best. So we obviously, since you started by saying social, we have seen that in terms of discovery. So, again, I cannot exactly, point out the numbers, but social actually is doing much better than ATL, all the mainline media that we used to basically use. Yeah. Influencer is doing, by social, it's obviously a mix of what the brand says and what influencer says and what opinion leaders say. So basically all of that is doing, a lot of I would say, buzz building for us. In terms of discovery, also search happens to be, very important. Yeah. In the age of geo right now, obviously the brand's own website is, very important. All the discussion forums, the platforms, basically those are, really, really important in terms of, discovery. And then when it comes down to the consideration, that is where, as I was telling you, basically, things get a little trickier. Over there, you need to basically, people are in their exploration stage. They are in their evaluation stage. So at that time, you kind of need to basically have some very strong voices, and very reliable voices, very authentic voices to kind of channel the fact that this is not really a product that they are basically endorsing, but this is a product that they would rather stand by, and that's something that they basically had adopted themselves, which is where basically the consideration kind of gets formed. And then, by the way, in the last stage, I would say it's about experience and decision, which is where obviously one part of it is entirely that whether people touched or felt the product or not in a store or even in a digital environment. And at the same time, what kind of nudges did they get in terms of leading to a conversion, what kind of offers did they get? Was there some kind of a CRM program that targeted them? Are they already part of a community that basically drove them to the purchase? So that is how basically, the entire mix kind of works. But the second part of the question is again that at this day and age, basically, I would say that the lines are blurring, So that happens to be, say what exactly, tech marketing looks like right now, that we happen to sometime basically drive enormous reach from something that is a consideration medium, and sometimes, maybe a consideration medium actually leads to a direct sales, So again, with the advent of AI and LLMs and all of that, I think we're going to see more changes. Yeah. But that is how the landscape is kind of shifting.
You talked about the platforms that are gaining traction and attention for us, but which is that one or two platform which you think is losing its edge in today's time for tech launches?
Well, again, do not want to, badmouth ATL or mainline media, but at the same time, like I said, when it's a battle of consideration, we do not see, the old school ATL media basically, doing much service, maybe I'm also bit, skewed towards digital in general, basically, like having come from that background.
Obviously.
But yeah,
tech.
yeah. But at the same time, that is how, we see things nowadays. See, the way basically of looking at the consumer today is that, they're like fragmented, not just like, as you said, in attention and all, but also fragmented in terms of interest, Yeah. So there are all these niches, all these, you can say fandoms and subcultures and all of that.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out your niche, basically. So imagine you can't really, appeal to a gaming audience by actually doing something mainline, is how I basically, look at it. So you need to go a bit more granular. You need to basically find out who appeals to that gaming audience in order to actually, sell a device to them. Yeah.
Makes sense. You briefly touched upon the topic of creators, influencers, and how they make the chatter around more amplified. I want you to kind of break down for me how, say, I remember going for a phone launch, and not naming the brand, but right before the entry, there was around a 2-kilometer long line outside Bharat Mandapam, and that was the first time I ever saw that long a queue just to attend the launch of a phone event. Inside, they had made the whole universe of the phone and the brand and the history and how the chip is made and this and that, and it was way more detailed than we could ever imagine. There was a separate section for influencers just to create content with the phone and put it online and stuff. So this whole spend on influencers and creators for tech launches, it has amplified so much. What do you think, where it's going and why is it gaining so much prominence?
Right. Well, the thing is, every research that you look at would tell you that, how big a role basically influencers and creators play, in terms of actually sort of leading to a decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, it comes from the fact that, that there are I would say some 3 or 4 factors, which are at play here. And I can kind of quickly define all of them. So the first thing is obviously, sort of the reach building, the fact about the simple amplification that, when you actually have someone onboarded who happens to have close to 10 million followers, obviously, they almost end up becoming a default media vehicle for you, and that is just one way of basically looking at it. The second thing that comes into the whole mix is, I would say, authenticity.
Yeah.
So the fact that, people who genuinely believe that this guy stands for something,
Yeah.
they are way more basically likely to believe him as opposed to a brand basically saying it.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, one of the tech launches that you're talking about. So we were actually introducing a feature. So all a gamer had to do was just, do something with his sneaker and the feature basically, of the phone. And it immediately got introduced, within hours we got over, some 6 million reach, and insane amounts of engagement and all. And we realized that, that is something we have never seen before.
Yeah.
Literally a feature, a product got introduced just by virtue of him and his sneaker fandom, so
Right.
like that. Then I would say there is this sort of a third factor of advocacy, which
Yeah.
is the fact that if they are themselves behind it, if they kind of have lend their voice to it, or basically have which is happening a lot nowadays, that people influencers are getting a stake into brands.
Yeah.
Obviously then people are way more basically keen to kind of believe that yes, this brand must be basically genuine. So that is pretty much what I would like to say about in terms of how we kind of look at influencers. Again, yes, you are right that in terms of reach building they're used more.
Yeah.
But however, we are at this particular point actually thinking of going a little deeper. We are experimenting a lot with regional creators.
Yeah.
We're experimenting ourselves a lot with basically, creators who have very specific fandoms
Yeah.
and very specific tastes and niches, so that, we can basically appeal to those bases as well. So from, I would say, from fame to micro fame is
Yeah.
how basically
Yeah.
we kind of, pitch it basically.
That's true, actually. Micro and nano influencers are gaining much more traction.
Yeah.
And since we've mentioned influencers and creators, at a larger scale, I would love to now touch upon Gen Alpha, which we were discussing at backstage, that now this segment of consumer is the main decision maker now when it comes to purchasing the product, right? Or at least influences the main purchaser. So how do you target this set of consumer? What are your strategies to catch hold of them at the right place and the right time?
Right. So if I may just just correct you in one thing basically. So I think them being kids, I'd rather not say target.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way I would say that how do we appeal to them? How do we nurture basically? How do we kind of get into the community of them? That is what I would like to talk about. So the thing with Gen Alpha is we are kind of from all our researches and everything, the signals that we are picking is that they're starkly different from the previous generations.
Definitely.
From a tech point of view, I can tell you them obviously being tech natives and being born into it. They know way more than you and me, and by you and me I mean even a tech marketer, they would probably know more about technology than me probably.
Definitely.
And what is happening is very visual first. For some reason basically they're throughout the day obviously too much immersion into content, so much into gaming and all of that basically. So in general very aesthetically very developed.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that how they're like developers, say, or you can say designers since birth, like that.
I mean, my 11-year-old niece knows how to make AI videos of my dog by now, so I'm really surprised how she does that.
Right, so so there's that, and then on top of that, the other interesting thing that we're seeing is that this is going to be a very interesting cohort for tech marketers in particular, because it seems like, and this again is a very early signal we are seeing, that they might not be device first. They might be, OS or UI first.
Yeah.
So the way, why I'm saying this is, they have way higher affinity with apps, with native apps. So obviously imagine, if a brand has basically got, say spoken to them through the native apps that they have, chances are that they would stick to it, instead of basically all the pizzazz of the device, which is what Gen Z was about, Like
Yeah.
it was about status, it was about aspiration, it was about having a funky phone.
I'm Gen Z, yes, I know.
So yeah, so I think there's going to be a big shift basically from that particular point of view. But in general, yes, again, say the fandoms are going to get even more, say sort of, I would say sharper, they're going to say get into much more, much more finicky taste, they would have it won't be sneakerheads anymore, it would be a particular kind of sneaker that they fall
I mean,
for.
the craze for anime and Korean
Yes.
and all of this is going
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
with this
like-
trend, right?
yes, yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, I don't know if this was in my generation also, but at least in the Gen Alpha generation, I can see them going crazy for everything Korean and Japanese.
Yes.
Okay, I would now like to also discuss that we always need to have an on readiness model for a tech launch, right? For a tech market. But for unpredictable competitive drops, brand to brand, cut to cut, neck to neck competition always happening in the market. What are your strategies to always be on the edge, and how do you keep yourself prepared for any sort of competition that comes suddenly?
Right. So again, like I mean, what I would like to sort of like say point out is what I basically like started off with, the fact that how the launch to launch, or basically like say only thinking of, okay, so let's launch something because the competition has launched something basically. So that model is kind of is, I would say, is bit old school basically.
Yeah.
Or like say it's the older playbook. It still gets followed, like I mean to some extent. But the new model that we are kind of looking at, and this is something I would like to spend a little bit of time about. So.
Yeah.
This particular model, is something in which I would say like it is bit more CX-led. It is bit more consumer-centric, basically.
Yeah.
It comes from the understanding that a person looking for a new phone is looking for it because maybe the screen is damaged, or maybe because they have gotten a promotion, or
Yeah.
maybe because they need to gift it to someone, or maybe because it's Diwali, So for those reasons, and they do not really care that whether your brand, like say launched a phone in January or in September.
Yeah.
So that is just how basically they kind of like say go about it. So when you look at that, when you, instead of doing consumer segmentation based on like the business, business way of looking at it, which I believe is slightly myopic, when you look at it more from a consumer-centric point of view, when you look at need profiles, that,
Yeah.
okay, so let's see that who exactly are the segments in the market who basically, like say, are thinking of getting a phone
Yeah.
because, like the last phone is almost damaged. Then what you get are, like, I mean, you get a totally different view of it, basically. You basically see how to kind of like say, sort of like say, reach out to them. At what stage of the journey are they in? So you get a very journey view of like, sort of marketing, which is entirely borrowed from CX and design. And, like of late, we, like, at our company have been kind of championing this. So we have been basically developing a model which has, around, I would say, 7 moments of impact, which we call, so which very clearly sort of gives you a picture that, okay, you can very clearly identify that it seems like a larger segment is kind of maybe is at an evaluation stage, or maybe they are currently experiencing phones, or maybe they are almost near decision, they just need the last trigger or the last nudge to kind of get over there.
Right.
So that is a different way of looking at marketing, and which I would say is not really centered around competition or centered around that, okay, let's just follow the old rule book. And yeah, so that is how I see the future of tech marketing also being. Yeah.
I think the best is to put out a tweet saying, "Let us know when it folds." That was the best campaign I remember that one of the brands had done, and I'm really a fan of that moment. Inching towards our last question, as AI accelerates both creativity and content velocity, what do you think is the way forward with this aspect coming to the marketing plans of tech brand launches?
I can specifically address this from a point of view of what we are doing, So
Yeah,
what
of course.
we are doing
From a
at
Cheil
Cheil.
perspective, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely, yeah. So from a Cheil point of view, the way we are basically seeing is that, yes, like discovery is changing, like the way basically, like say a person goes to like, a GPT right now and prompts saying, what is the best gaming phone right now? So obviously, like say, so it basically like totally like, in some way basically redefines the entire landscape. Commerce has changed, like I mean, as we see basically, like like I mean, we used to earlier think like have this bifurcation that, okay, this kind of product can only be sold on this platform, but nowadays there is quick commerce basically selling phones as well, and so yeah, so that whole landscape has kind of been disrupted again, Then on top of that, again, like the whole content ecosystem is like continuously changing, it's getting like say shorter, and like I mean, you can't really tell what goes popular, what goes viral at what point, so there is that whole mix.
True.
So the way we basically kind of look at it is, like at this point we are kind of championing this philosophy of what we call is a business connected approach, So the way we kind of look at it is that, let's not look at it function wise, but see that, like based on what exactly the consumer needs, in order to make a decision or in order to kind of move ahead in their journey. Let's plan around that. And for that, like the structure we're kind of following is, I would say, organization within organizations, So like we are basically building AI capabilities, like we have built already, like say, like data capabilities, which is actually supporting even the global data centers, We have like, I've actually been investing a lot in terms of influencer marketing again. Like, I can only give you a hint of how big we are basically going to, like say sort of like say get into that. And then, on top of that also there is this whole thing of, like content production and like how much of the content production can actually happen entirely at the you can say the agency end or the basically the, the content producer end basically. Like that also is something we're basically focusing on a lot. And yes, like the future, the way I kind of see it, and specifically I would say in regards to agencies, is that, it's not going to be the agency we used to know,
Yeah.
It's kind of going to be like kind of a model in which there are like, I would say communication,
Yeah.
there are capabilities, which
Right.
has been built ground up, like the way we are doing it now.
Yeah.
And there's also consulting, like, I mean, to a great extent, it seems like, the expectation of the clients also is more like, that, I mean, exactly tell us what to do, like do not respond to a brief, like because there is no brief. We genuinely do not know how to tackle this person, who's basically searching on perplexity.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, so that kind of like thinking basically needs to also come in. So it is a rewiring, I would say, of the entire thing. And the future, I believe, is going to be that, business connected. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, I have a small and fun rapid fire for you. And are you all braced up? Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Mic up. We want it rapid and quick.
Right, sure.
Okay, a movie that describes one after the other tech launch trend.
I would say one battle after another.
Of course. What do you think is the right food dish that describes the wearables technology?
Oh, okay. I mean, wearables and food. Okay, that is a bit tricky. So it has to be something healthy, basically, like a salad, maybe.
Okay, awesome. The coolest marketing campaign that stuck with you recently and cannot be your own internal client.
Oh, okay. Right. Does it have to be from tech or can from
Anywhere.
From anywhere? Okay. So I very recently saw this, like, I mean, off the top of my head, basically, I can say this basically. So this campaign that I think this brand called Kathmandu, did,
Okay.
I think from from New Zealand maybe. So it's like a very, very niche positioning basically. So they're like, outside, your comfort zone. So it's like comfort wear for adventurers, I just found it unique basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
If not building marketing strategies, what would be your alternate career and why?
I think, screenwriting maybe,
Screenwriting.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because,
Interesting.
like, I mean, that would also require, making up a lot of stories.
Okay. 3 words you live by in an attention deficit market.
Okay, I mean, yes, attention deficit market, I would say, okay, substance over style.
Okay.
Always, yeah.
Awesome. That's all for today. Thank you so much, people. I hope we made your 15 to 20 minutes worth spent here. Thank you so much. And I think we'll have to come forward for a picture.